Attendance first, myself, Mayor Southard,
JP Martin,
Brian Wolf,
Terry O'Connor,
Beth McFarland.
Jesse Sham.
Eric Fisher.
All right, and we probably have an agenda.
Yeah,
We do.
this was emailed out.
We did send it around, so it's very
Okay.
short and sweet.
Perfect.
There's no minutes this evening. This is
Even better.
officially a work session.
Okay.
No action this evening. The only thing on the agenda is the continuation of the code discussion. As I mentioned in the email I sent around earlier today, Jesse got me his stuff. Brady got me some stuff. We obviously had edits from the last meeting that were here. All those are incorporated in the current one that was sent out this afternoon. So most of that was discussed at last meeting and has been incorporated at this point. There are a few questions. Jesse is among us this evening, so we can ask. I've noted them in the one here, and if there obviously are any other questions or thoughts, we can proceed to ask Jesse some legal questions while he's here.
Yep.
Beyond that, the only item left from the last meeting to be discussed in a little fuller detail, we will leave some time to discuss the home occupation stuff before we officially knock something up to council, which will be the next meeting on the 15th. That time we'll pull everything together at that point. So.
Okay. So does somebody want to start? I know there was a couple, like he said, there was a couple people with some questions. Do you want to start?
Someone can ask Jesse if they've got specific ones. I've got them. I've got stuff you noted on my items, and he and I talked yesterday and today.
Do you want to go over those real quick, and then we'll see if anybody has anything after
Happy to.
that?
You seem to have something.
I know he had one thing too. So whoever wants to go first.
You go ahead.
all right. As we're looking at this page 127 and 128,
1 sec, let me get there.
Yeah, go ahead and jump to it, Dave.
and what specifically is that, just in case
That
page
has to
numbers
do with
changed
motor-
until, I just want to make sure since
That's
it's
huge
words
motor
when page
vehicles.
numbers change.
yeah, I apologize.
No
We
worries.
start on page 127, FE, motor vehicle repair, unless that's, oh, sorry, that was the F,
Okay.
I apologize.
Was F now E? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motor vehicle repair definitions, and then we have A and B. So if we scroll real quickly to 128, we crossed off all that. So now we can actually define what we're talking about when we're talking about major and minor vehicle repair. So I have two suggestions, if I may.
Yeah.
As we talk about major vehicle repair, maybe we add something like, you gotta do this in the garage, you know? But if we did leave everything the way it is, it also might be simpler to go back. And I kind of crossed off and highlighted the yellow section, which you can't see here, which is just the real parts that just really need to go. But then you can leave that because this doesn't really clarify, I guess.
So I agree that there's some, the definitions don't really make any sense once you remove
Yeah.
all of all of what is struck out on page 128.
Right.
What this essentially has become, because what I see in that note there that we want to handle, yeah, this is great. We want to handle these vehicle repairs in the home occupation section. So that gets rid of like a commercial business working on cars in their driveway. Maybe what we do is we leave that motor vehicle repair, we leave the definitions.
And this is the only parts that I highlighted that I felt we should actually remove, but some of these are very good, you know?
Sure.
And I felt like this was it protects the weekend warrior and the home guy that helps out their neighbor or their mom or something once in a while.
What did you highlight?
Oh, sorry. Just,
Yeah, I mean, I totally know what you're saying. So what you're saying is, you should be allowed to work on a car in your driveway, no matter what you do.
well, hold on, let me just, no.
So my thought
Not
on this
exactly.
is that, because again, when we talked about this, our intention was to generally allow a home person to work on their own car or a friend's car as a non-commercial enterprise.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right? And so, in this section, I think that we could get rid of the definitions and under section 2, to make so it currently reads, no person shall perform or conduct any motor vehicle service, work, grade, I think that's probably supposed to read upgrade would be my guess, because I don't know how
I
grade
think you're
works
right.
there.
It must be, yeah.
As an occupation or business.
And it should
right?
say as a.
Except as defined in, and then make a call out to the home occupation. And then all the stuff that's redlined, I think, from my reading of it, I think it's all fairly well covered by our nuisance code.
Right.
Right? So, because if you are making objectionable noise, we have code around objectionable noises. If you have unsafe items in your driveway, we have nuisance code about unsafe items in your yard.
But
Right? I
then-
think all those things, yeah,
But we should, okay, if that's, right, if we did do that, then we should also take out minor vehicle and just take this whole section
yeah,
out.
take
Yeah,
out the
take out the
definitions,
definition.
cause they're done.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
just-
definitions mean
And
nothing.
just take that motor vehicle service and repair,
Yes,
fix grade to upgrade,
yep,
and add as
Yep.
for occupation, except where allowed by and reference home occupation.
And then, so you're removing E,
We're
1A and
removing-
B?
We're removing 1A and B,
yep,
1A and B,
and
okay.
making a minor minor change to.
Motor vehicle and repair.
so it basically becomes motor vehicle, E becomes motor vehicle repair, period, and then all of the paragraph after what is now one, motor vehicle service and repair,
Yeah.
except as you just
You mean-
amended.
And perhaps, as we go through this, perhaps if we talk some definitions, I think we're gonna have perhaps a more comprehensive definition section at some point here, whether it's ready by next week or
Yeah.
for council's review.
And those
Right.
definitions
Yeah.
may go and slot into home occupation, what
Right,
what home occupation, if you are running a garage, a home,
Right.
a car repair business out of your garage, I'm sure Mayor Southard could do that, cause she's got plenty of room in the back and a garage space in the back and, so that's where those definitions may come in handy.
Okay. Understood, alright.
Does that make sense to you? Are you
Yeah.
picking up what I'm putting down?
Exactly. You shouldn't have a business. Right warrior is okay.
Yeah.
The neighborhood helper.
and I do agree with you, I mean, so much of this, if there is a car in the driveway in 6 different pieces for a month, there's like 11 different things we can cite them under. It doesn't, it doesn't need to get down to the nitty gritty here, there's junk vehicle statutes at the state level we can do, so, yeah, yep,
Yeah, there are other ways to handle that I think we should rely on.
yes,
Very good.
okay.
JP, anything else? Okay. Very good. If no one has anything else, I'll start from the top and.
Yeah,
Sure.
From the top of the home.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Yes, go ahead.
I guess I needed to bring my computer to follow along, didn't realize, sorry.
No worries.
But I can plug into
I
that.
also,
Pull it up.
I also brought my plug.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, if you
Tonight I
want to do
remember.
that.
Oh,
She was
yeah.
telling me
It's just-
before that,
Yeah.
I guess it's a requirement now to bring your computer.
It does help.
who leaves the house without a computer anymore? Come on now.
Exactly,
Yeah.
well, that's like exactly.
So
what
I
I was
gave you a good
doing.
start, I gave you a good starting
Oh,
point,
either
and
one.
then after.
Yeah, that is
This is
everything,
what she was saying.
you're right.
Okay. Oh, this
It's
is,
a USB-C.
and it will fit mine, that's what I got. Sweet, even better.
Let's see if we can. Now, if we can learn it's on. We should input.
Star tables are interesting.
When we had the school district here, I was trying to tell them how dumb they are, and they're like, oh no, these are great, for all these reasons, like,
That's okay.
Yeah,
Now, if
buddy.
it's on the record, we can point them out to them.
the great for all
Why
those
were they
reasons.
thinking they were great? That would be,
Yeah.
someone did a good sales job.
Uh-huh.
Well, it looks great for the kids, right?
I
Looks nifty.
Right, well, yes, it depends on the use of the word.
hate my school.
It's little kids in pods reading, it's great, but if you're having a business meeting, it's.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Grab that, Buzz. Okey dokey. most of this is already, and I'm just gonna kind of scroll through, so forgive me.
Yeah, I think a lot, yeah.
Most of this was already handled the last several meetings, we simply brought it all together. I specifically have, like here, said question for Jesse. The 3/4 budget of 5.6 came up last meeting,
Yes, yeah.
so I think a little explanation on the, how that's typically handled or defined, or which one is appropriate or better.
Sure. So how I've seen it in a lot of cities is they've empowered their planning commission to make a decision, make a recommendation, and I guess I shouldn't say a lot. I've seen it split both ways, which is why it's really up to you and why I didn't really make a call. Sometimes they require just a simple majority of council to say we disagree with what the planning commission recommended. Too bad. Some say we've given them the power to make this decision and they're sort of the first line and they've reviewed it, and so to overturn their decision, we need 3/4 of council to make a different
I
recommendation.
think the question is really more, like, it's clearly calling out it needs a supermajority, but we're calling out the supermajority two different ways. 3/4 or 5/6.
Oh shoot, where do I have, I'm sorry, if I,
And it's in each of those two different ways, more than once in the document, and we were just looking to align on the better of them, right?
got it, yes.
Because,
Well, that's fair, so I think maybe the clearest way to say it, so that you don't have math problems when someone's not there, is what you might wanna say. If you want to say that, you would say, you need 5 out of the 6 council members to overturn a planning recommendation,
okay,
planning commission recommendation.
yeah, I
If
have
that's,
no,
okay,
I have no
I see.
problem with that.
okay,
I think it's saying what it is. It also makes, so I'll throw out one concern there, is if the council is short if it's short 2 people, right?
Right.
Like, and we have been in the past,
sure,
then there would be no opportunity for the council. So what the council would have to do is table
Right.
right.
whatever the commission
And that's a
did.
very reasonable concern. If we want to do 3/4, you could do, well, that would be 2/3, 4 of 6 would be 2/3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on,
That's a majority in that case. The only
It
time
is.
it doesn't apply.
Well,
is
it's
a
a majority
3-3.
to adopt as recommended, it's a supermajority to adopt amended, right? And
and so,
so,
you could do it, we could do it either any way you want. So I guess that, what do you guys want?
Can you do a percentage? Or they don't like percentages?
But it's,
Well,
It would be,
whether
it would,
it's there
2/3 would
or
be,
not there.
yeah, it comes down to, if we get out there and there's only 4 people, then there's no, they can't,
they can't, there's no ability to adopt amended,
Gotcha.
right? Like if,
Same with waiving of readings.
right,
if the council took this document and said, oh my God, this is really great, except for this one may, should be a shall, right? Well, they couldn't adopt it that way if they're down 2 members. They'd either have to table it until
Right.
they've brought on
right.
a 5th person to adopt it that way.
Or we just straight up say, thank you, planning commission made the recommendation, council's the final vote, a majority of council
Yeah.
can, you know, that's.
And that's
fair
the
enough.
way it is now. I think when we talked through this the first time, we had added that to give this body a little more
Yep.
bite.
Yep,
Because there have been times when council has amended the recommendation that may or may not have been egregious.
right.
So again, I am perfectly fine with a 5/6,
Okay.
as long as we understand the implications. We'll see what the rest of
Sure,
council.
sure, yeah, that's a good point, yeah, that's a good point.
But,
Yep,
I mean,
okay, so I'll get all the references to one way.
Yes.
And then when we talk about it later, we can figure out if that's the way we want.
yeah,
Cool.
Very good.
Okay. And all those definitions I reviewed, they're all standard for everywhere else I've seen as well, so.
and then Tommy Grant should take up that assignment, right? So that's like the 4th
Definitely.
thing we've assigned to him today?
That's right,
Yes.
yeah, that's what it, yeah.
We are waiting to find all of the tasks.
Voluntold.
And then Beth, I have a call with Mike tomorrow, so I'll task him with a number of reviews here so that he can recommend to council concerning ADA slopes, bringing everything up to par, which is where we need to be anyway. So I just marked it, have engineer review, we'll take care of that. Anything that needs to be brought up to standard, it's a good time to change it all.
No, I got to back blessings. I'm sorry.
And also one other item that I did alter after a lot of discussion, I wrote this into the minute. I added this language to be reviewed by Jesse, but something basically, this last line in red covers what we discussed, so that would be, that's the question last time, Jesse, was how does this get redirected, right, in places where we have now the plan district for the rest of the classic part of the village, which we call the legacy part.
Okay.
And most of those major review items now go from staff because of most of it's because of the non-conforming nature of the district back to this body. So I simply added language after some thought on Beth's questions. Applications will be distributed by village staff to the appropriate public bodies for their review as directed by the code where applicable. And that was just a quick line.
Sure.
So.
Okay, that's 120204?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I will double check that. That seems to make sense to me, rather than calling out each specific one where it needs to go. Yeah. Could you click on the page, just so I know what page you're on?
Oh, yeah,
'Cause it's-
sorry.
Oh, there we go, 38?
I'm on 38.
Okay, cool.
I'm just flying through.
Cool, cool.
What I did is I marked out where each, after I listened to the minutes again, I marked out where each, yes, here's the next one. There was a question here for you, Jesse, on the review. I think you changed this section, so I think they asked to make this more clear just in general.
Sure.
Where are you? I'm trying to follow.
We are at, this is for conditional uses, 1232.02, all the way down to B to C. There was criteria for approval. Jesse had put a bunch of stuff in here just to make it, just to bring it up to snuff. Under D then is where review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And if I recall correctly, you were to hold a public hearing with 10 days written notice. I think the concern here, what was brought up at the time, was simply, hey, that seems a little
Tight.
Yeah, it seems a little convoluted.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there were several concerns, there were several voices being, several items being voiced in that regard. We can pull that specific, you can listen to the discussion, I think that might be
Sure.
from that meeting. If no one here recalls that directly. But
I mean, is that, yeah, I mean, planning and zoning has to review it, they have to hold a public hearing.
Right.
I see, I mean, as I'm reading that right now, you get lost at so many times, I can see how it's convoluted. What I mean by that is, you have to give at least 10 days written notice and then they'll hold a public hearing, but it looks like it could mean you have to have a hearing within 10 days.
Yeah.
It's just, and then provide within 10 days a recommendation to council. Was that
I think that's the gist.
That's the gist,
I think just clean it up there.
Sure,
What
yep,
what isn't called out there is the part that this kind of looks like it's saying that a public hearing needs to be held within 10 days. So what isn't spelled out is how long before that public hearing has to be held.
correct.
Yeah, so that needs to be added and then the other two pieces clarified.
And what I would say is, I typically see those, by the time you hold an application, it's usually, like, you have a P and Z meeting within, and it's up to you, yeah, I mean, 30, I mean, it's up to you,
Number in my head is 60, but
Okay.
people might think it needs to be faster.
Sure.
But I can absolutely see a variance request coming in, late November, and this body not having
Right.
a scheduled meeting in December.
Right. And then
Which
you're
is why
out of time.
60
Yeah.
days is, in my opinion, a fair number.
Okay. Do that.
which is excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think it's more satisfying than deleting page upon page?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just want a Michael Scott, I declared bankruptcy. Just, yeah, like it. When it comes to-
Just make the declaration. Should watch that show.
Twelve eighty-two point oh eight, for everyone's purpose, note, this is a parking residential district, yeah, 163 on this version. This was, Brady had sent over his suggestion for how we handle commercial vehicles and recreational vehicles and all those things. Jesse and I had a discussion today because I think the issue that's coming up is we have some other oddities in our police code. Chapter 3, Chapter 6, and where the enforcement needs to take place is within the police code specifically. The zoning, we can tell people they can't park a giant bobtail in their driveway, which is fine, but our method of enforcement is slow, right? If someone parks, you know, the cab or the truck in the driveway, and leaves it there, then we can obviously cite them. But once it moves, maybe another one shows up a week later, then the process starts all over again. And it doesn't function for mobile items. Now, if they're parking in the street, the council has direct control of the right of way, and the police can enforce the council's wishes. So when we have someone parking, we have to adjust our code, as we discussed today, which we'll bring to council through legislative purposes. It's kind of part and parcel with this. And then the officers will be able to enforce that. And we would probably do it under some type of commercial weight, easy to identify, such as the plate itself. You know, commercial vehicles beyond 6 tons or whatever it is, you know, which is identifiable by the officer without any special training because it's on the plate, and then write, you know, a code. If you actually have to weigh vehicles, it's a whole different ballgame. You know, we're not going to get into that.
Right.
Or axles and all that stuff. So we're getting into just very simple definitions so people can simply enforce. We'll look into it, may need to add something to the signage on the streets in order also to make it, you know, citable. That's a different discussion with the chief. But for sure the code needs to be adjusted.
Yes, and as long as you're all, I would always be more comfortable with police writing these tickets than dealing with zoning, civil issues with it. I mean, a parking ticket, they can write it in the mayor's court and we'll deal with them there. Simple enough. And I love going by like a plate and something that I can point to as the prosecutor, and so they can't come in and say, well, my truck's not 1 ton and prove it. You know.
Right,
And they're kind of right.
Someone stole my catalytic converter that day, and it was
Exactly.
$999.
Exactly. So we can do that doesn't have to be long and involved at all. I'm sure there's dozens of examples of just a quick new parking violation that we can put in the code that will stop semis from being parked in the right of way.
If that's something we actually want to do.
If it's something you want to do.
Yes.
Right.
You'll have to
That's
discuss
right. Yeah.
Most municipalities do,
Mm-hmm.
but there's reasons for that. Code, you know, width of the road, things of that nature. There are places where trucks can park, and day trailers, but it's not, the residential streets are generally not designed for them. And by weight, that's the other problem too. They can cause damage to your streets, which is the primary reason why you don't allow them to park on the streets.
Something that bubbled in my mind, and I was wondering, what about if they could apply for a permit to do something like that? And maybe it's a temporary, you get a year permit or something, and as long as they're, I don't know. It was just something I thought of.
I don't have any issue with that because it allows you to designate certain areas that may be a legitimate parking for example, where the guy chooses to park over here, may be perfectly legitimate because he's not, you know, especially if he lives right there.
Yeah.
There's no houses on either side, he's not actually, you know, blocking traffic where they're on Minerva Lake Road, that could be problematic, or if he was in between houses, you can't see around him, it's difficult, right? That may be perfectly fine, so this is a designated area, you have a permit, we appreciate your registration, and yeah, it's something that could be considered.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with
just
it.
something I thought in my head, and I was
Right,
like, yeah,
that's a
maybe
good
that's
idea.
a,
You know, this goes back to someone said, how many company vehicles can you have in your driveway? 2 or 3, or what's too many? Right?
yeah.
That goes back to that. Say if you're just starting off your own business, you had one company van for the last year, and some small guy wants to have one more vehicle, maybe he has to apply for like a permit or something to have 2 vehicles for a temporary time, like say you can only do this for a year until you get your own place, so you know what I mean, to have your vehicle, so I don't know, something like that.
Right.
But that's not,
So when we get into home occupation, we can discuss that a little
you
more
know,
in
that
depth.
way it kind of has some leniency, the interiors to help people out.
Right.
To grow and so forth. You wait.
All these things can be done. So, I think the last question here is under swimming pools. Brady wanted to know, do we need a definition for swimming pools? Because we don't have one. I don't know if we needed to, we took this code from Columbus specifically to deal with kind of temporary pool situation.
Sure, and those like, those ones you can buy at Costco, they're like 3 feet deep.
Right, and this deals with regular swimming pools too, but
Sure.
you know, Columbus was trying to tie them all in together. They liked the code, so it got put into our code here.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, that you don't have to answer it right now, but. I
Sure,
mean,
yeah, definitely.
Right, so. And that is it, folks. So we've been fairly, I think, efficient. So if you've got any other questions, I know it's been going on a while. So,
Are you, Jesse, just gonna come up with a swimming pool definition, or?
Yeah, I'll dig around and see what we found, because I know that a lot of the codes aren't prepared to deal with those new Costco pools that are not a kiddie pool, but are also not an in-ground or permanent pool.
Right.
So it's
Vinyl and PVC.
right.
So I have a question under the, well, it's the parking in residential districts, back to that one, when you were looking at the recreational and other large vehicles, the next paragraph down, inoperable vehicles.
Sure.
So-
Roughly what pages in that?
Well, this is an old version, so it was 163. It's section 128, 2.08, paragraph C, inoperable vehicles.
got it.
So that, and just that applies to any vehicle, right? Not just, the first section says recreational equipment must be kept in good repair and carry the current year's license and or registration. But then the second one, it says such motor vehicles may, so is that's referring to recreational equipment? Because it says such motor vehicles.
It does say all recreational equipment unless you kept them good.
Well, and then, so what I
This
was
is under
wondering about
recreational,
was, is
yeah.
there anything in the code about people just, parking a car in their driveway and it's there forever and ever and ever?
Right.
And we don't
So-
care?
No, we care. So
Okay.
under the maintenance code in chapter 14, which
Okay.
is much more specific about
Okay, it's
nuisance
in
and junk
chapter
operations. So we have covered ourselves with maintenance code
Okay,
in this case. So that's our good catch-all, and it was recent code that we did when I was,
Yeah.
2017, 2018 timeframe.
okay. And then the other question, do we have solar panels covered somewhere?
Solar panels are considered a mechanical. We encourage people to have solar panels. They are put onto the roofs. We take issue with them, and we can better define it. It's not a bad idea. We take issue with them when they are in ground-based ones. Specifically, we already, because that's kind of a broad definition, but home maintenance items, as we'll call them mechanicals. Home mechanicals have to be around the house at a certain distance, I know it's defined somewhere, and they can't be in the front 50%, without special reason when they build from a permanent standpoint. Generally, we don't have any exceptions to that. There could be somewhere someone's got one, they've got a steep slope in the back and they've got to mount it more towards the front of the house. But generally speaking, when we have air conditioners, think of it, those are all mechanicals, generators, right? those all have to be placed at the back 50 or behind the house. In the same light, we would disallow ground-based solar in the front yards. They call for backyards, a lot of trees in the middle of parks, so generally people don't do that. But we can put some code in there that discourages ground-based ones if that's what you're getting at.
Well, no, I just wondered, I was just thinking about, things that, like, okay, so we're redoing the code, what's more current things that have come into being lately, and, satellite dishes have kind of gone by the wayside. We don't have those so much, but solar panels, and I just was wondering if we could address that and how they were addressed, or if there was a definition, or if they're covered under maintenance, because I'm sure like in the, future that's gonna come up, or do we just handle that when it comes up, or if it becomes an issue, do we just then
so it's just
look
like
at something being passed at that point in time?
Right, so it's the same type of, think of it as they're all handled under maintenance code in some form, right? So if I've got an array of solar panels, it's treated no differently than my air conditioner or my roof, right? So if I've got shoddy, any of those are falling into disrepair, it's citable under the code. Right?
Now, this is where it comes up in other places, and my preference would be we just treat it like the roof, right?
Right.
So we're not a couple of cities I work with, they've said, you can have them, but you can't have them on street-facing elevations of the home.
That doesn't help people, because if you've got a north-facing house and it's on the street, that's stupid.
Right.
That's
the
purpose of it.
Yes.
Right.
And so if we are silent on it, then they can do it.
Right.
As long as they keep it in good repair.
Yes. And so it's at some point I kind of agree with it. It's like it's almost easier to not put a whole special code in, as long as you treat it just like a roof. If everyone wants to treat it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
The only thing that can be added is simply, I haven't run into it yet, but I also don't know that it's necessarily a problem. If someone's actually got a decent backyard that faces the south,
by all means.
Yeah, I'm kind of on that page that if you want to take up your backyard and put in an array on the ground, that's okay, right? You're meeting the requirements of the code. You'll have to meet the setback, you have to meet the distances, and all that stuff. So I haven't nobody's done that yet, but no, it's all roof mounted these days.
Yeah.
Cheaper, I think, in some ways.
And probably safer, right?
I agree with that too. People don't want to use their backyards necessarily, they have tight yards, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Nobody's doing any windmills, are they?
It hasn't come up yet. That would be interesting. We have height restrictions. If somebody wanted to, we'd have to bring it in for a conditional use or a special permit. But I think, generally speaking, they have to get pretty high for a useful wind power.
The roof one does great.
There's a good example, and it's not operable anymore, but the folks over at I think it's south on Reynoldsboro Road, so 605 south of where Morse Road intersects at the roundabout. On the right side, very nice property, got a nice stone wall with nice big windmill. It's fallen into non-functioning status, doesn't work anymore, but for years they had it rolling, so but they've got a nice property. Township property can go way high and stuff, nobody cares. So, I say that the closest example to that is we do have radio ham type radio requirements for towers, right?
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to do one, but those don't get hugely high either.
But I think we butt up against federal regulations in
Right.
regulating those as well, right?
You can get pretty high with those, but we mimic whatever the feds, so because that was a big deal, obviously post World War II, so but we've got one or two operators in the city, in the village that said.
I only know of one. I only know of one. I wonder who the other one is.
Yeah, if you say that, it's often some memory of discussion.
I'll have to get my dial out and
There you go.
Would you pick up?
see what I pick up.
Other questions? All right.
Let's talk home occupation.
Yes, I wanted to leave about a little bit of time for that. So, who would like to get started on that? I think we wanted to talk a little bit about
173?
yes, that's page 173. So I think where people were going back and forth, just to start it off, was what's okay, what's not okay, right? I think from a broad standpoint, it's uses at the end of the day, and then you can get into the perhaps you know, once you're beyond uses, then, well, you know, employees, vehicles, right, those kind of things, permitting, you know, any of those items are fair game here. Right now, the way it stands is people are supposed to file for a home occupation permit when they have a business. I can tell you in reality, it really doesn't, that people don't do it, you know. I mean, if we have a problem, we deal with it via complaint, such as when the home detailing business, because they're blocking sidewalks, right? Too many vehicles. That's what gets our attention. People, these days post-COVID, a lot of people are working out of their houses anyways, right? So you can't really tell the difference between whether I've got, you know, a guy working legal, insurance, or, you know, anything else. It's mostly what gets people fired up is with, I have a lot of vehicles, I have a lot of employees, or I've got a lot of activity on the site, right? So that's what gets people's attention.
All right, so going down this, already 1A, no person other than persons residing on the premises shall be engaged in a home occupation in any residential district. So that, just for clarity, to make sure that I'm understanding what that means, is if I'm a lawyer, I've hung my shingle, and I have clients come, I can't have a secretary that isn't my wife or kid.
Right, that is what that says. It was me that made that suggestion. I think we threw that in there from somewhere.
Who made that suggestion?
I said I didn't make that suggestion.
Yeah, I
pulled that from somewhere.
I would prefer not to say that.
I would agree with you.
So you could just delete other than persons residing on the premises?
You just delete the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, everything below that addresses the issue, which is too many people, too many cars. You don't need that, yeah. If you can have a secretary there, who cares?
Well, it's interesting, so to take part in the home occupation, I guess I would also ask, you know, person living there runs a business, but you may have someone show up to pick up a vehicle, right? But they don't take part in the business on site, especially if they're picking up in the right of way. Because the zoning is going to deal specifically with the parcel.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way to cut the mustard in that case, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you that you know, generally people are going to have possibly, you know, an employee, they're going to have someone come pick things up, you know.
Well, I don't know that a courier is engaging in the occupation, right? That would be, I think that's a tough case to make.
The other way you could read that is to say,
let's employ the courier.
What we mean is, there can't just be a house for rent here and you rented it and use it as an office. You're not living there.
No person other than persons residing.
That's true. I mean, you would want to not have. You would make sure they first and foremost the primary use is a residential use, right? A single family residential use. I rent it because I live there.
Right.
I don't rent it because I'm just coming in to have an office use. I could be out in Cleveland doing that.
Right.
Right. So interesting. Yeah.
There's a better way to write it than that.
Yeah.
That's a
right.
Yeah, I can't.
So very good. We'll
on it. That one. Primary use is residential. Yep.
Mm-hmm. No sign shall be used in connection with a home occupation, nor shall any display be used that will indicate from the exterior that the building is being utilized in part for any purpose other than that of a dwelling. I don't know that I like that one either.
Well, I like that one.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit much. Like, what's the harm? So if under my, you know, I have on the front of my house my street number dangling,
right,
and under that Brian Wolf Esquire, right? That lets someone know that I'm an attorney operating there, so that the people come into my appointment know, oh yeah, this is Brian Wolf Esquire. Yeah, okay, this is the place. But we could limit it in our sign ordinance. We could limit it lots of ways. Like, we don't need wacky waving arm guys. We don't need illuminated, you know, massively illuminated signs, but like the way this reads, the old guy,
sign, placard or something.
Yeah, the old guy that's at what is that, Lakewood and Briar Rose, who for the last 100 years has had his little notary sign, right? Like, do we really not want him to have his notary sign? I don't think that's who we're legislating against here, or that we're zoning against.
somebody had a little accountant sign out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, CPA, right? Like, I don't, something that, you know, within reasonable bounds is, I think, in my opinion, is okay.
But I think, you know, like Don Jesus out there on Cleveland Avenue,
It's
like,
a bit
right?
much.
But he's on Cleveland Avenue, so.
Right, he's on Cleveland Avenue,
But
and
we
that's
won't want that
fine.
in the village, right? So, but a little placard that says accountant, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost during tax time for the accountant, you don't have, you know, taxes are us, somebody plop down in front, you know, there's all kinds of advertising, that's what that's what
Yeah, or
happens.
somebody out there.
It proliferates in some
Yeah.
form.
Yeah,
I got a sale today,
which is why
go get my
guardrails,
Amway.
guardrails are guardrails for a reason, right? And so, you know, someone's got, if they're selling Melaleuca out of their garage, you know, and they got one little Melaleuca sign,
Right.
I don't hate it.
Alright,
I'm not.
I'm with you, I don't.
Yeah, like I, you know, maybe I'm trying to lean on the side of liberty more than
I don't
control, but.
I don't have an issue with it, I mean, personally, I mean, it's, I don't see that as the enforcement challenge, I see.
It's just, the only challenge is, I mean, it's just figuring out,
Where the line is.
yes.
Right, and so I would, I'm guessing somebody has peeled this banana before.
You would be surprised.
Yeah, you typically just
Yeah.
take the ban, they
it's
say
not-
no signs, and there's
Right.
our banana.
That's exactly right.
That's the,
So you maybe, it's a useful experiment, because I don't think, I think post some point in time, we'll just call it again, post, you know, World War II, when subdivisions were proliferating, people had a certain desire of how they should look, how they should feel. Somebody got the code, somebody liked the way it looked, other municipalities copied that code, right? Maybe not even trying or even listening, right? So.
Could we could, here we go. The standard could require approval, right? That your home business.
As part of permit approval.
Can hang a shingle that needs to be approved.
Right.
By this body, that needs to be approved by council, right? If we write standards, then it could be approved administratively.
Yeah.
But I think the writing of the standards is where the sausage is made, and that's the hard part.
mm-hmm,
Right, if we just say by approval.
yeah,
Right.
that's asking.
Well, it's asking for it, but it's, I'm trying to feel like, you know, I'm a home worker, and if I could figure out how I could sell this, what I do, to regular people, why couldn't I hang a sign?
Right.
Go apply for a permit.
I was gonna say, the state of Ohio, when you're requiring to open up a business or whatever, you usually take a picture of what they call a storefront, and you submit that. So just like what Brian's saying, just take a picture of your sign, you just show it to council, and if it's something reasonable, like within a window, a certain size, like a generic template, so to speak, hey, cool, like.
The risk is if you don't develop a standard, right,
You don't want a standard.
You have to.
No
then,
neon signs.
right, well, yeah, so
Yeah.
if we don't have a clear standard, then what can happen is the body can disapprove it because they don't like you.
Right.
Yeah.
So they could not like you for legal
Right.
reasons, and they could not like you for illegal reasons.
Yeah.
But it's real hard
It is.
to tell the difference.
And I would say, so the easiest way is like the application was for our sign code, and as part and parcel with home occupation permit, which they're required to file anyways, there are standards on the page that they're issued, and they can submit that, or they're allowed to put one up within the standards, right? Thanks for your permit, we have you registered,
Yeah.
here's what you're allowed to do, off you go, be blessed and prosper, right? That's
Yeah.
I think the simplest way to handle it, because this is not something that requires, you don't require a separate building or electric inspection for this type of sign, you don't need any of that, and I think the way it's handled simpler is better for the residents, so.
Is there,
Go ahead.
For home occupation?
like, do you,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was stated in.
I don't think we need to make people, you know, the less we make people come in front of the public bodies, the better.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure,
always
the
better.
faster it moves,
Right.
and, yeah. So, yeah, if, I can think on a standard, but I would hope there's one out there in public documents that.
I mean, yeah, we can pull from our own, you know, it has to look professional,
Mhm.
you know, you can't make a piece of cardboard, we want to see.
Professionally developed.
Right, which is fairly easy these days.
You know, not to exceed
Right.
3x1.
Fit in the box.
Right.
You can have any number of colors, you can go forth, you know, enjoy yourself. We don't have architectural standards like that here, so.
No more than 256 colors, thank you.
Right, okay. All those good things. So,
Okay.
Okay.
font of your choice.
change to the outside appearance of the building or premises shall be made, nor shall there be any other visible evidence of the conduct of such home occupation which would change the essential character thereof as a dwelling.
But it's an interesting paragraph, because you would need a permit to change most of the facade features anyways,
Yeah.
you know, on your home.
I think this is like, you know, building a sally port or, you know, making a parking lot on your whatever, but all of that would require permitting anyways. I don't think the first clause of that is a problem. I think the second clause of that is directly countermanded by what we were just talking about, though. Nor shall there be any other visible evidence of the conduct of such home occupation. If we're saying we would allow a sign, that's visible evidence of said home occupation.
Well, but it's only based off which would change the essential character thereof as a dwelling, and a sign in the window doesn't change its nature as a dwelling.
Okay, fair enough.
Because you're right, what that's meant to do is for sure plop a parking lot down the front yard.
Right. or install a giant walk-in freezer
Yeah,
you know, on the side of your house because you're
butchering. Yes.
They just have to match the facade. You can add an extra room, you just have to come to permit.
Right.
Right.
Alright, so I think I'm okay with C, with those explanations. D, the space devoted for use of the home occupation must be within the main dwelling or basement or contained within a permitted accessory structure on the property.
And this is one I have an issue. If you're allowing it, then I don't care if you're using the garage or something else, right? Again, this is going after people who were mechanics, I think.
Or things that are happening in the driveway, right? This is disallowing the
I don't know what business you run in a driveway, so.
detail.
Oh, there you go, okay.
Yeah, that was the word I was looking for.
What are we doing in the driveway? Are we garage sailing or what?
Yeah, well, we've had families that had garage sales every weekend all summer long in the past, right?
Like a craft shop or something like
Yeah,
that.
right,
Call it
I
craft
mean-
sale, but it's really a craft show or craft.
Yeah. I mean, well, there really was a house that had a garage sale every weekend,
Bizarre.
all summer for like 3 years.
Man, I wish I had that time.
Well, I think it was their business, because a lot of, everything they were
That's
selling
true.
was like,
That's true.
looked like closeout buys and storage locker
Okay.
buys and
Makes
stuff
sense.
like that, and that was just their business. I'm sure they didn't get a permit or hang, you know, this right. But, yeah, so I guess there is some concern, like, I think if it's, as long as it's not a nuisance, I would hate to disallow something like this. But I don't know how to say, you know, please don't be a nuisance.
Well, when they are.
Please don't be a nuisance.
We tell you not to be a nuisance.
But then you'd have to put in the definition of a nuisance.
We already have that.
As long as Brian doesn't get annoyed with you, you're okay. That's what the definition is.
I'm super chill too, man. People get away with a lot, but it's just what I think. But, I mean,
There's a definition.
yeah.
I think my question is what could go wrong with that?
Well, lots could go wrong with it because people take advantage, right? But as it stands right now, our friends with their detailing business, with the way this reads, would have to pull into the garage,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Doesn't say they have to close the garage door, but they couldn't be in the driveway.
Right.
And if they create a certain noise level from all the detailing, then it reaches the level of nuisance, then that's when we have a discussion.
Right. So that's why I'm saying that a driveway is not an improper place. Like maybe we just amend on or append on their driveway. Spaces devoted for use of home occupation must be within, within the main dwelling or basement, contained within permitted accessory structures, garage or driveway. Right.
Does anybody else have an issue with that? Or is everybody okay with that?
That's cool, all right.
Right, again, like the
You want to
person,
detail my car?
the person who's selling Melaleuca out of their garage
Show car, no,
should be disallowed to sell Melaleuca out of their garage, as long as it's, I don't know why I'm picking on Melaleuca tonight.
I would say anyway.
It's just fun to say.
It's a good sweet power.
All right, E, no home occupation shall be used in such a manner as to credit offensive create offensive noise, vibration, smoke, or other particular matter, heat, humidity, glare, electronic interference, or otherwise constitute a nuisance or a safety hazard to any occupant of adjacent or nearby properties. Look at that, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, that's mirrored in other sections.
Okay, there shall be no outdoor storage of equipment or materials used in the home occupation. I have no issue with that.
No pallets and stuff.
Yeah. No more than 4 motor vehicles used by customers of the home occupation shall be parked at the location of the home occupation at one time.
This is where, from our earlier discussion, this is where the fine line gets.
Right.
At one time, 4 can be a good amount, right? It just depends. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3. You're at the fine line here, so that's.
Right, you're at a fine line, because if it's a home that already is in, and don't kill me for saying this, you got a home in the new development that already doesn't use their driveway, and they have 2 parked in the street, now you got 4 people over there, now you got 6 cars in the street.
It's very successful. There's going to be 4 every so often. It's going to be maybe 4 all day, right?
Right.
I mean, I think the question
Could
is,
be interesting.
yeah, I mean, I drop mine off to my tax lady, and usually I pull in when somebody's leaving, or there might be 2 cars there.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like tax season's probably busy for some people, or, I don't know, again, what could go wrong.
Forgive me for asking this, but with things like home, like if you had a church service at your house, for example?
It's totally different.
Totally, you're allowed to park as many, whatever,
Will not interfere.
What about like book, I mean, this is just a personal question, like
Yeah,
book
that's
clubs.
a religious and free speech issue.
Yeah, that's,
We're not.
I mean,
we're not there.
you know, if they jam up the streets, that is far different, you know, there's safety concerns and all of
We could
that.
talk institutional usage at that point, I mean, but that's a very different conversation.
Yeah, that doesn't fall into this.
No.
It would probably depend on how the church was organized, right? So if they had a corporate charter of some variety, then they are a business of
I'm gonna
sorts.
tell you not to touch it with a 10-foot pole right now.
Yeah, it's just screams federal lawsuit.
We're not gonna do, that's not an issue.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that become an issue.
Yeah,
I've only had to deal with oddities with large church gatherings where neighbors not happy, and I have to go and make sure that's what's going on, and I have to talk to the neighbor and said they have a legal right to meet for this church gathering, right? And then it's usually the end of the discussion, right? I haven't had any that explode out.
Yeah. Nor is this something that we're experiencing, right?
No.
We actually have an active issue.
Well, I think that that's something, and Eric and I are not gonna probably go into detail on it, but, you know, there has been requests of potentially turning a home into a church in the village, and I'm not going into detail.
Which is a different
There's,
issue.
Right.
yeah, so I mean, I think that there's, you know, there's,
You also.
without
can't say
hitting
no.
it with a 10-foot pole, it's like, I don't know how you can protect, like, I know when they put the rehab, I'll say this on public record, I know when they put the rehab facility behind my house in the way that they operate their business, I was not happy. It was one of those things that I say, what could we have done to protect the village? Like, it was a nursing home, I was okay with that, most residents are, but this type of facility, most people don't want in their backyard. It's been fine, so, but is there something, you know, is there something that we could have done to protect for this type of facility in advance? So I think my question is without, and I know I'm on a public record for saying this, but is there anything that you can do to, when you start talking about churches, and I'm not trying to bash anybody's anything, you know, whatsoever, but as a village, is there something, and maybe I'm not just meaning churches, but to protect for somebody just to go, and I know that there's still limits as to how many people can be in there and how much parking and all of that, but I also think that that's very lenient for, so something.
well, there's, I mean, straight zoning,
Right.
permitted and conditional uses and, yeah,
Right, but as you know, you can't zone out institutional
Right.
religious uses, so.
Like, we have a church on Jordan Road, like,
Sure.
we do, it's already
Sure.
there, it is a,
Can't say no church.
right.
well, right.
But if somebody wanted to put one in per se down the street, those lots are a lot bigger.
Right.
I mean, is there anything
They
to,
have to meet, so Mayor, if I may, so this is, for my point, this is excellent discussion, I can go on for a couple hours in
Oh,
and
yeah,
of itself.
yeah.
So, but to shorten this up, it's not a home occupation item. The church, as the mayor mentioned, when you become an institutional church, right, you can do that, let's say I got an acre, but there's a limit, you have to meet parking code,
Right.
you've gotta meet occupancy codes, you've gotta meet a lot of different codes, even if it's not you. We can't zone them out and say no churches,
Right.
that's just not gonna happen. So, but they can't just magically turn a home into a church with one of these 20-acre lots. It's not gonna happen,
Be that easy.
right? They because that, you are an institutional user at that point. And so you have to meet the code in order that you can't use the street to park your 20 vehicles, right? You have to be able to provide it. That's a major holdup, right, for certain things. And the house only, even if it's converted to its institutional commercial use from a fire code standpoint, still can only hold a certain number of people at any one time.
Yep.
So don't worry so much about it. We had this one issue come up where it potentially could have happened, but it did not because there's a lot of hoops. You can't just, when people look into it, I want to start a religious institution, but I gotta do this, and I gotta do this, and I gotta do this. And suddenly it's multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars have to be invested to convert the residential structure into compliant institutional user structure, right? So,
Right.
but, back to home occupation.
Okay, so I had another thought with this, not more than 4 vehicles used by customers. So the Mary Kay rep who hosts their parties, that seems like a very quick way to get beyond 4, is so, I'm just posing is that enough for most of these other businesses that we've been imagining, right? Our use cases being, lawyer running out of his house, a CPA running out of his house, right? Those kinds of things, they're only gonna have 1 or 2 people at a time.
I think you're fine for most people. I also think that, you'd have to adjust a little bit to say, since from our previous discussion, used by customers and or other employed individuals in the location, right? So I think in that regard, you're fine. I think, I just think it's a rotation of them. I think in most, I can imagine uses where there's service-based uses and or a combination of retail-based uses, and then I have, maybe I've got a successful home-baked cookie store, and I've got a special, I got an online special, and all of a sudden everyone's showing up to get those cookies, right? There's a line. Could happen, right? So that's a good thing for them. It's just, I think you need to get yourself a retail shop at that point.
Yes.
Right. It's a good problem to have, and that's a discussion to have when it happens, right? So I think, back to your question, I think that's probably that number's far more than most people need.
All right.
So.
I'm just wondering how someone's just gonna have to be sitting there paying attention.
Right.
Like, those are customers.
It'll become,
that.
it'll happen over a period of months where somebody calls and complains.
Yeah.
Yeah, the neighbor's sitting there watching.
Yes,
Yeah.
the neighbors are
There's
sitting there.
video, there's all kinds of things that'll be put in.
Cause I'm thinking there's somebody that they've got like 6 cars in their driveway all the time.
Mhm.
And I think it's their family. I mean,
Right.
it's
Right.
Probably
But
is.
How do you enforce it? Yeah, knowing that it's not
See-
just a gathering versus a.
Right.
a
Same
business.
vehicles are showing up, same people are there, the neighbors know those people.
Right.
That does not generate complaints,
Yeah.
right?
So
If
that's
there is
just in
complaints,
there
it's a
really
turnover.
as a
Enforcement would be
complaint, as a,
complaint,
guardrails for complaints.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alright, moving on down the line then. Home occupation shall not generate traffic greater in volume than normal for residential neighborhood, for a residential neighborhood. How do we,
I mean, anything you do that's more than your standard home trip counts, people in and out,
You're already
It-
saying
it-
only 4 cars,
right,
so.
But when it's
my
4 cars
problem
in one
is that I
time.
don't feel like there's any way to.
There's not.
Well, there's not a way to write someone a ticket under this code section, subsection G, but
Right.
it provides color to people to understand what we're trying to do.
Okay.
And it gives it gives the village, it sort of explains what our point of view is. We're trying to keep people in the village safe. You can do your business here, but you can't turn this into 161.
Got it.
Or Cleveland.
Or Cleveland,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay, so the intention here is just to, I like what you say, give color to
Yeah.
what we're aiming at here.
Right.
I think it kind of supports like Mary Kay for G, but then there's H, and it's like if you're having one of these meetings every other day, you're like, come on now.
Right.
But, one time.
So that's gonna generate, that's
I'll
gonna
give you a
generate
gimme, and I'm
complaints.
not gonna-
Mhm, mhm.
Alright, no truck, van, automobile, or other mobile equipment used in the home occupation shall be parked inside or open yards, and all automobiles used by customers shall be parked in the driveway or along the street curb abutting the premises unless other more satisfactory arrangements are required or approved by council. After public notice and hearing, home occupation parking on non-curb streets is prohibited. No truck other than one van type truck shall be used in connection with a home occupation unless approved by council. Okay, so my first question is, home occupation parking on non-curb streets is prohibited?
It's not possible.
Yeah, we have to strike that because, we certainly, like Lakewood, Maplewood,
Sure.
Alderness,
All of them, yeah.
right, most of Minerva Park, Minerva Lake Road, yes. So
Essentially
that-
prohibited all home occupation. Right.
Right.
Parking.
And then no truck other than one van type truck, I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
Okay, so,
So as long as you drive a car, you're good, but if you have a van, no.
They didn't want to see work vans, I think is the
Right.
intent here.
yeah,
Or big dually trucks or anything like that, so.
So I mean,
Do
like, what
we-
about, you know, like with the guy that does the tree stuff, he's got multiple vehicles, how does that,
You said the guy that does the trees?
yeah,
on Minerva Lake Road.
I mean,
Josh.
like, 'cause-
Josh, yes.
yeah. How does that play into this?
They don't really want Josh under this particular.
Right.
That's how that plays into it.
Basically, would we be better off defining this as commercial vehicles and other mobile equipment? Is that,
And this is just my random question, do most people have, I'm not saying what's legal, do most people have commercial tags on, like the landscape?
Not
I
necessarily.
didn't think so.
Not
I mean,
necessarily.
Okay,
There's certain requirements, we can provide a little more color to what those requirements are, so people can get a better idea of that.
right,
Certain vehicles, certainly, because you get to a certain weight class, you have to have a commercial tag, right? Like i.e. the bobtails, the tractors, those kind of things, you gotta have them. But when we get into the van structures, it again comes down to what you're doing, how the vehicle's built, how heavy it is, all that kind of stuff, whether you get into the commercial tags. Some heavy work trucks, seem smaller, but they definitely have a commercial tag,
Right.
they have to. So, but your standard work van, your contractor van, your F-150, 250s, 350s, whatever, don't necessarily need them.
see, I have no issue with, this is just me saying this, I have no issue with the work vans, I have no issue with what it says on the side, whether it's a work van or whether it's a personal van, I like that. The thing that gets me, and this is not just for one person, because it happens on Wildwood, and it definitely happens on Minerva Lake Road, I do think it's very dangerous when some of these people are parking these larger trailers, even though it's only for an hour or 2 hours or something like that here and there. When you're trying to go through there at 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, when there's a lot of traffic, I can't believe that there's not more little fender benders down there.
People are at least careful drivers.
They are, yeah,
Right.
well,
So-
some are. Some just go through yards.
Well, and that one's only like,
Traffic calming.
we know the person
That's
who
true.
lives there that has a landscaping business, but the same thing happens throughout the neighborhood.
Mhm.
When somebody hires a landscaping
Correct.
people, that one's like parked out there as well.
Sometimes those are only there for more like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the ones that are there parked for several hours. And again, some of those people do multiple homes
Yeah.
throughout, so again, that's my little pet peeve is when I try to get on Minerva Lake Road and you have the large, and there's one on Wildwood too, those roads are just so thin
right,
that it's very difficult to get around them safely.
yeah. So,
But I'm not an answer.
so how, I think my sense is we're feeling that this doesn't say what we want it to say, but we don't know what we want it, how to say what we want it to say, which is, don't, well, this is really, hold on a second here. No trucks, vans, automobiles, or other mobile equipment used in home occupation shall be parked inside or open yards, and all automobiles used, so this is really just saying don't park in your side yard or
But
park
yeah,
on the
it's sort
grass.
of, it's framed
So this
in the
can be
negative, and it can be flipped to say all home occupation vehicles must be parked in the driveway.
in the driveway, yeah. Don't park on your damn lawn.
Right.
So if you
Unless you're
extend
washing
your
your car.
driveway beside your house, you can park.
Right.
Hmm?
If they're legally, if they're permitted, they got the permit and could make it work, sure.
Yeah.
Or if you already have the driveway there.
Well, right, yes,
Right.
right,
So you can
right.
just-
Alright, moving on down to 2 then. Permits, all persons conducting home occupation which are presently existing or which are established, changed, or enlarged after the effective date of this chapter shall be required to obtain a permit from the mayor or his or her agent. The initial permit shall be valid for a period of 2 years after the date of issuance. A renewal permit shall be secured for each subsequent 2-year period thereafter. The fee for the permit shall be set by council. No issue.
Okay, so. Is there do we have like a complete list of, and I'm sorry, I walked out for a second. Do we have a complete list of?
What is allowed and what isn't?
And I think I'm asking, I will tell you, we have gone to a couple people, and you're probably aware of this. Again, I'll make this quick. We have people that like rent out rooms in their house for college students or this or that. Is that considered a home occupation because she's charging people?
No.
Or is it just more of like an Airbnb?
That's a rent.
Just
Yeah,
a rental.
that's a rental
Yeah.
situation, that's not a home occupation situation.
What was the other one that we had? Keep going, and I'll think of the other one, whether or not it's an actual home occupation or not.
Alright,
Do you know what it was? Do you remember what I'm trying to think of? That there was one that was in question?
I remember we had a discussion a while back, so
Yeah.
you'll have to, if we're going through it, it may pop back up.
Okay, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, the only other one I remember being an issue was home daycares, and that's because there's a
Yeah.
countermanding state law
Right.
that makes it such that you don't have to, you can't require them to be registered or permitted.
Right.
But that's a different thing.
And that's like the only thing like that
Right.
in my.
So now we're on to 3 permitted home occupations. The following shall be illustrative of permitted home occupations: handicrafts, art or music lessons, dressmaking, millinery, laundry, preserving, and home cooking. It shall not be the intent of this section to prohibit the maintenance by a homeowner of a private professional office on his or her premises, provided that the provisions of this section regarding signage, traffic, and other, so that's just an illustrative list of things.
Color.
Huh? Color.
That's color.
It's color.
Perfect.
Okay, so that's it.
We can expand the list. Or we
Does the
can-
village have a lot of milliners?
I don't even know what it is.
I don't either.
Okay, well, I'm so glad you said that because I was just
I
like,
have,
what
I
is
think so. But I thought that was a haberdasher.
I'm gonna look it up.
From the 1800s, it's like.
Yeah, it's like, okay, how many cobblers do we have?
Oh, I cobble all the time.
Oh, it's a person who designs, makes, or sells hats for women.
For women.
For women, specifically.
I see what's going on.
That's why I was confused, because I go to a haberdasher
That's right.
for all of my clothes.
But haberdashers aren't on here, so don't be doing that.
We can certainly add.
But no, remember, the list was merely illustrated. If it's good for women, it's good for men. So
I think
haberdasher.
personally, I think what would add a lot of colors, we should add a lot of 18th, 19th century terminology.
That's right.
in here. That'll be quite amusing to people who read the code.
It would.
Yeah, I'll make an official request of haberdasher, go in right after. Oh, that's men's clothing and accessories is haberdashery, so the hat is an accessory.
We could just take a Wendy's Wellness Center and put it in a apothecary.
Much to the sadness of all Wendy's very happy clients.
You know, there's so much I could say that we just will not. I don't even know where to start.
Moving on, so yeah, so that was the end of home
That's
occupation.
the end of home occupation, thank you very much.
Have a
So,
nice night.
2 weeks, we'll be back, we're going to clean it up, we're gonna have a clean copy, and of course this copy, which, council's gonna begin the review. If there's anything else, please don't hesitate to send emails.
Yep, can we ask to get the
Yes.
the compiling sooner rather than
Right.
later? Like
Yes.
if we could have it for at least 3 or 4 days beforehand for.
Does the Monday before the Wednesday work?
not as well as the Friday.
Friday.
Yeah, I'm going to
Friday can be
Antigua
better.
next Saturday, so I will have it done
For
Friday.
a week.
Beautiful. I'm actually,
You'll have it done on the 10th?
Yes.
Okay,
No
good.
later than the 10th, yeah.
good, cause it'll be good light reading, I'm going to LA that weekend.
Good,
so.
okay, just wanna make sure the date, so.
Yep.
Yes, we could make that happen then, if
Alright.
you'll get it done, you get it to me, and then we'll wrap up that.
I'll get it to you before the 10th, so you can.
Very good, thank you, that's
Yep.
good.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
you all.
Time for some
Right.
high
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn. Woo-hoo. Turn off the recording. So now we can have
Now?
turn off that other recording. I got a question.